I was handcuffed right there in the hospital hallway, my grandmother's heart monitor still beeping behind the door, and the woman who caused it all was standing a few feet away pretending to cry. I hadn't hurt anyone. I hadn't raised my voice. But according to her, a man like me didn't belong in that room. And within 3 minutes, I was being escorted out like a criminal while my 84-year-old grandmother reached out for me terrified. It started earlier that day. I'd just come from a client meeting still wearing a full suit and tie when I walked into St. Jude's Hospital downtown. My grandma was my rock sharp as ever, even after hip surgery. When I stepped into her room, she smiled so big it could light up the whole damn city. We were talking about her recovery, the awful hospital food, little family things. It was peaceful, just me and her sunshine pouring through the window. And then the door exploded open. She came in like a hurricane. Blonde hair, a mess, red jacket, green sweatpants, eyes wild. She pointed at me and screamed, "What did you do with her? Where is she? Why isn't a white woman in this bed?" I just froze. My grandma gasped, clutching her chest. I tried to stay calm, told her she had the wrong room. But she didn't care. She was already dialing 911, yelling that there were intruders in her mother's hospital room. Within minutes, 2 security guards stormed in. They looked at her, a crying white woman, then at me, a tall black guy in a suit, and decided who the problem was. "Sir, you need to come with us," one said, hand near his taser. I tried explaining, but it didn't matter. My name was on the visitor list. My grandmother was literally in the bed. But they weren't listening. She started fake crying, saying I'd threatened her. The guards didn't even ask questions. They pushed me toward the hallway while my grandma's heart monitor spiked like a siren. I'll never forget her eyes wide, scared, begging them to stop. By the time the police arrived, the whole floor was staring. The officer barely asked for my side. When I told him the truth, he just nodded, bored. Then he said, "You're being removed for causing a disturbance." That word, disturbance, burned. They banned me from the hospital property. I remember standing outside under that yellow streetlight feeling like the entire system had decided my guilt before I'd even opened my mouth. The next morning I called the hospital to clear it up. They said an official report had been filed claiming I'd distressed another patient's family. They banned me for 72 hours. I couldn't visit, couldn't call, couldn't even talk to my grandma. The woman on the phone said, "We can have a nurse relay a message." A message. Not my voice. Not her hearing me say I loved her. Just bureaucracy. For the first time I started doubting myself. Maybe I should have stayed quiet, maybe I looked too defensive. I was angry, but mostly exhausted. I thought if I just waited, the truth would sort itself out. But then the calls started. My mom said someone called the nurses' station pretending to be a concerned citizen, asking if the hospital was safe from me, the violent man who caused a scene. Then my boss called. He'd gotten an anonymous email painting me as aggressive, unstable, a danger to the company. It was her Karen spreading her poison, trying to destroy my life piece by piece. That's when a friend gave me a name. Mr. Evans, civil rights lawyer. A quiet bulldog in a tweed jacket. His office looked like a college professor's den books. Everywhere coffee stains, zero small talk. I told him everything start to finish. He listened without interrupting, just steepled his fingers and said, "So they banned you based on her story alone?" I nodded. He smiled, not kindly, but like a man who just found leverage. "They're stupider than I thought. We're going to make them regret it." He requested all the security footage and internal emails. When we watched the video together, my stomach flipped. There I was, calm, hands out, trying to talk her down. Then her bursting in, slamming the door, calling 911. The guards walk right past her and straight at me. It was all there. Every frame of injustice preserved in HD. And the emails, even worse. Lines like, "To de-escalate, remove the male visitor." No mention of her screaming, no mention of the racism. They'd built a story to protect her and dumped the blame on me. But the real twist came from a nurse named Angela. She called Mr. Evans in secret voice, trembling. She said she'd been on duty that day and couldn't live with the lie. Turns out the Karen's mother had died in that same room just hours before my grandma was moved in. The hospital knew the daughter was unstable. She'd screamed at staff earlier, even had a breakdown in the hallway. They knew she was coming back, and they let her walk in alone. No escort, no warning sign, nothing. They basically set the stage for disaster. Hearing that changed everything. It didn't excuse her racism, but it explained the madness. Her grief twisted into rage, and I happened to be standing in the crossfire. Still, the hospital's negligence was undeniable. They knew she was volatile and did nothing. Evan's eyes lit up like a predator's. Negligence, discrimination, retaliation. We'll bury them. While he drafted the lawsuit, I started to fall apart. Nights lying awake, imagining my grandma alone in that bed. She was asking for me. My mom told me on the phone, her voice shaking. She keeps wondering why you're not there. I felt helpless. I wanted to drop it all. Just wait until Grandma came home. When I told her over the phone that I might let it go, she went quiet. Then she said, "You think I'm that fragile baby you fight. You fight for me, for yourself, for the next family that looks like us." Her voice cracked, but her will didn't. "They count on us being tired. Don't you let them win." That was the moment everything flipped. I wasn't just fighting for revenge anymore. I was fighting for her, for every person who'd ever been treated like they didn't belong. Evans moved fast. He sent a letter to the hospital's CEO, not a complaint, a threat. Either lift the ban and hand over all records, or he'd file a discrimination lawsuit that would make national news. 2 days later, the hospital folded. They called me personally, apologizing for the misunderstanding, lifting the ban immediately. But it wasn't remorse. It was damage control. And Karen. She couldn't stand not being the center of attention. She started calling the hospital again, harassing staff, then sent anonymous emails to my workplace. When that didn't work, she went public. She made a GoFundMe titled, "Help a Grieving Daughter Fight a Vicious Lie." Claimed I was rich, that I'd teamed up with the hospital to ruin her life. The news picked it up. Bad move. Channel 4 aired the full story with Evans's footage. Her video, her lies. The internet roasted her alive. Comments tore her apart. $45. That's all her GoFundMe made before she deleted it in humiliation. Then came the settlement meeting. A long, glass-walled conference room downtown. Me and Evans on one side, 3 hospital lawyers and a vice president on the other. Evans didn't say hello. He just pressed play on the footage, the Karen storming in, me standing calm, the guards dragging me out. You could see them squirm. Then he laid out Angela's testimony, their internal emails, the whole ugly story. When he was done, he said quietly, "You didn't just fail to protect my client. You participated in his humiliation, and you tried to cover it up." He slid a thick binder across the table. "That's the draft of the lawsuit. You've got 48 hours before it hits court and Channel 4's evening news." The VP turned pale. The lead lawyer asked, "What do you want?" Evans didn't miss a beat. "A personal written apology from your CEO to my client and his grandmother. Termination of both security guards. Mandatory bias and de-escalation training designed by an outside firm. And a financial settlement." The number he named made them gasp. But he leaned forward and said, "That's the price of peace." They argued for hours, trying to haggle. Evans just checked his watch and said, "Sarah at Channel 4 is expecting my call." By sunset, they'd agreed to every term. We won. But victory doesn't always feel like triumph. It felt heavy. My grandma was safe, recovering at home with private nurses paid for by the settlement, but part of me stayed angry, brittle. Until the day she knocked on my door. Karen. Standing on my porch. Black dress, hair pulled back, eyes hollow. I almost slammed the door. Instead, I left the chain on and asked, "What do you want?" She flinched. "To apologize," she said, holding out a small, crumpled envelope. "They made me write one, the lawyers. But it wasn't real. I needed to say it myself." I stared, stunned. "After everything you did?" You think sorry fixes that? She shook her head, tears streaking down. No, nothing can. My mother died in that room that morning. I came back for her locket and saw you. I broke. I said things I didn't even know I was capable of. She pushed the envelope through the crack. It's what's left from her estate. I want your grandmother to have it. I didn't take it. Keep it, I said, or give it to someone who can help you. You need it more than us. She nodded, crying quietly. I'm sorry, she whispered again, and for the first time it sounded real. I closed the door, not out of hate, out of release. That apology didn't erase anything, but it broke something open inside me. The rage had kept me standing. Now it was time to set it down. Months later, a package arrived. Inside was a small silver locket and a handwritten note. I've been sober for 6 months. I'm trying to be better. This was my mother's locket, what I came back for that day. It should belong to a family that understands love. I held it in my hand for a long time. I couldn't keep it, couldn't throw it away. So I drove to the cemetery, found her mother's grave, and laid it there. It felt like closing a circle, the end of something dark. The hospital fixed their policies, fired the guards, retrained staff. They even made me part of an oversight committee. Angela got her recognition back. For the first time, I felt something close to peace. But the story didn't truly end until 2 years later. I walked into a hospital meeting and passed a support group in session. A young man was speaking, same blonde hair, same eyes as her son. He was talking about addiction, grief, and redemption. Afterward, he found me in the hallway. You're him, aren't you? The man from my mom's story. My throat tightened. He said she'd gotten sober, worked at a soup kitchen, spent her time helping others. She talks about you, he said quietly. She calls you the family I wronged. She says she can never ask forgiveness, but she hopes you know she's trying to live like she deserves it now. He asked if I'd come to hear her speak. That night I did. I sat in the back of a small community center as she told her story, every ugly word of it, owning it all. I took my pain and I aimed it at an innocent family, she said. There's no excuse for that, only the long work of becoming better. Her eyes met mine at the end. No plea for forgiveness, just acknowledgement, 2 people forever tied by a single moment in room 412. For the first time I saw her not as a monster, but as a broken human who finally stopped running from the truth. And that's where I'll leave it. Because sometimes justice isn't about punishment. It's about truth and what happens when we finally face it.